Yo, what's up people? Today I want to talk about the Sog Terminus XR. This is an interesting little knife. Had it for a couple of months now. Actually, I don't even know how long I own this, but I had it long enough to give you a review on this knife. And as you can see, I use it pretty regularly now. And I do like to use it. It's a good little knife. And I don't like everything about it, but we'll get into that. So yeah, the Sog Terminus could be described as Sog's comeback knife when they did their rebranding a couple of years ago now. And this is not the first version of the Terminus. They had a couple of versions. They do have a couple of versions now. The first version used like laminated carbon fiber and I think a CTS PD1 steel or something like that. And this one is G10 and Cryo D2. And I also think they make a lighter weight version now as well with S45VN or something like that. And then they also make this version. I'm not even sure what is going on here. So this one retails for like $50 or 60 euros over here. And yeah, this is definitely not the size of knife that I usually carry. I do like to use larger knives in general a little bit more. So this is more of a secondary knife for me personally, but I still like it. It's a nice, fun little knife. Now, the Terminus has a draw point blade shape, as you can see, a nice little swedge up here. The tip is relatively robust for the thinness of the blade. We have like 3 millimeters or 0.10 of an inch, 0.10 of an inch. I don't know how to say that in inches, but let me get that into focus really quick. Is that good? Yeah, there you can see the tip, nice and precise, but not too flimsy. Supported by a nice swedge. I do like myself some swedges. I think swedges are beautiful. Flat ground. And thickness behind the edge is 0.46 in the front section and 0.36 in the back section. So a little bit over 1/10 of the blade stock thickness. So it's a little bit too thick for how thin it is, but for a production knife of this price range, I think it's pretty alright. And also cuts pretty alright. It's not an excellent slicer, but it do performs decently well. Now, what I do like about this knife is that the Cryo D2 that Sog uses here actually compensates for the lack of geometry, of thinness behind the edge. So this knife cuts pretty damn long for D2 steel. I did compare it to some other D2 steels in my collection, and with an entry tension test of cutting rope basically, and also did some other entry tension tests with cardboard, and I found that this knife outperformed every D2 knife that I own, and even some powdered steels that are way more expensive than this knife. So this blade, at least the one that I got, has a really good heat treatment for a production knife. And yeah, so that's a great thing about it basically. The knife is really addictive to play with. As you can see, you can open and close it with multiple options. You have the XR lock that you can pull back on. You have the flipper tab that works alright. It's not the best flipper, definitely. I keep saying definitely in my video, I apologize for that. It's not the best flipper that I've seen for sure, but it works just fine. Like I said, it's really addictive. I do play with this knife quite a bit. Yeah, as the name suggests, it uses the XR lock from Sog. Sog used to have the where is the spec arc here? Sog used to have the arc lock, which is basically a very similar system, just that you pull upwards instead of straight back when you disengage the lock. Now I will show you a disassembled clip where I have this knife disassembled, so you can have a look at that a little bit better, how that mechanism works. But it's very similar to the Benchmade access lock, just that it has those two tabs on the outside here, but also relies on 2 omega springs. How reliable are those omega springs in this knife? I don't know. I have used it for a couple of months now, and I have played with it way more than I should, and the omega springs so far held up fine. So I don't know. I think it's more reliable than some of the Benchmade knives that I had. I don't want it to hate on Benchmade or anything, but all the Benchmade knives that I had in the last couple of years, the axis lock, or the omega spring I should say, the omega springs broke pretty quickly. And on this knife, and also on my spec arc that I have for a little bit longer than the Terminus here, which this knife is very sadly discontinued by now, but the omega springs in this knife held up pretty well over the time. One more thing that I think is worth mentioning is that whenever I disassembled and reassembled this knife, it was really easy to do for the type of locking system that we have here. And the blade centering was always spot on perfect when I reassembled this knife, so I was pretty happy with that part. This one is the Crimson Red G10. I bought this knife on a secondary market, so I didn't have the choice of choosing, you know, the color I wanted. Otherwise, I would have gone with like green G10 or something like that. But I do like the red G10 now that I have it, and I'm not the type of person that has a lot of knives that do have a lot of different colors. So basically, I only buy black knives and green knives, and that's it. I don't have any other colors in my knife collection. So it's a little bit different, and I do like that about it. Yeah, I'm not sure if the light that we have here will give you a good understanding how the G10 looks, but I will try to roll in another clip maybe where you can maybe see the G10 a little bit better. Fit and finish on this knife is pretty well done for the price we are looking here. Like I said, $50 US or 60 euros. The blade is pretty small, 7.5 centimeters, 2.9 inches. I mean, it's not that small, it's just a small knife. And show you some size comparisons to some other knives. I will roll in Spyderco Endura and the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Spyderco Para 3 and the Spyderco Chaparral and the Buck 110, just as a size comparison. Yeah, like I said, it's a little bit too small for me carrying this as a primary knife, but there are a ton of people out there liking small knives, and there's absolutely no problem with that. I just prefer to use knives in that sort of size range, like with the 10 centimeter blade lengths or 4 inches. I do find myself to enjoy this a little bit more. By the way, these two knives right here are the only other 2 Sog knives that I own. This is, like I said, the Sog Spec Arc. Yeah, it's so sad that they discontinued it, because this was probably the only Sog knife when Sog was really bad. This was one of the few Sog knives that was really good. And yeah, it's a shame they discontinued it, and also discontinued the arc lock, because I don't know, I think it was a good system. Now, this is the other Sog knife that I own. This is the Sog Pentagon. As you can see, this is a double ground dagger, basically, with the serrations on one side and plainish on the other side. And it's hollow ground. And this one is made in Taiwan. The old Sog Pentagons, as far as I heard, were much better. This one is one of the newer Sog Pentagons, and I think it's also discontinued at this point. And this one is not that great, especially for the money they ask for it. As you can see, a couple of imperfections, especially in the lanyard hole, and you can kind of feel that this knife is a little bit cheap. It's not that great in terms of how it's made. And it also comes with a really crappy sheath, which is why I made myself a Kydex sheath for it. Because, I don't know, the sheath out of box is just terrible. Yeah, this knife is not a really good knife. It's probably very likely that I will sell this knife at some point, because I don't really ever carry it or use it. Yeah, But so as you probably know, Sog had their ups and downs, and so this is a really good Sog, this was a really bad Sog, and this is a really good Sog again. And yeah, I do see why Sog made the reintroduction of their brand with this knife. They just did a really good job of executing it. Yeah, did I mention? Yeah, I think I mentioned that this one is made probably in Taiwan. Now, what are some of the bad things on this knife? I guess you have to like the size, and I guess you also have to like the handle to blade thing here. Not ratio, but I'm not sure how to say this, but usually when you have a blade, the handle has to flow with the blade in order to use the blade to its maximum potential. I'm not sure if this handle does that. As you can see, there's quite a significant space wasted here with this. It's not really a choil, but you can use it as a choil. And I'm not sure if the handle really complements that blade shape. The blade shape is really traditional, really no nonsense, and the handle is sort of, I don't know, it's sort of a little bit too neutral for how the blade is. And this section right here, like I said, is a little bit stupid, but you can still make it work. And I still like this knife, despite that. The pocket clip is actually the same pocket clip they used on some of the older models. Now, on this Sog Spec Arc here, if you flip it around, you can see that the handle widens towards the end. And this is really important because this is extra deep carry pocket clip, so it's deeper than deep carry, I guess, because it goes even higher than the end of the blade. And because that handle widens, your pocket, your pants cannot slip underneath here, because the handle is wider in the end. Now on this knife, we don't have that, and so what happens with some of the pants that I own, the pants slip underneath here, and the knife basically gets stuck if you want to draw it. It's a very common issue also found in Extrema Ratio knives. If you ever had the Extrema Ratio, whatever, you will probably already know that issue. Now, I do want to say you can still make it work by just basically, as you pull it, put your finger on here and then pull it out like this, and it's not really an issue. So again, all the issues this knife has, basically you can work around it and still live with it. I think for the price they ask for it, it's a pretty good knife, especially for the heat treatment. Yeah, I do like it, and like I said, it's super addictive to play with. And yeah, I guess that's it for this video, guys. Oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to mention. The weight on this knife, I guess for the size, or in general, the weight is not too bad. It's 97 grams or 3.4 ounces. Now 3.4 ounces is not a heavy knife, but considering the size of this and comparing it to some other knives, for instance, if you compare this to a Spyder Condura, this has the exact same weight as a Spyder Condura, but the Spyder Condura is a 4-inch knife or 10 centimeters in the blade length, and this is just 7.5 or 2.9 inches. So I guess it is a little bit heavy for the size it has. Now they also make a lightweight version of this one now, which is not that lightweight, but it's lighter than this one. Would I buy the S35VN version just for the little bit less weight and for the more premium steel? If you carry this as a primary knife, then yes, probably. But as a secondary, or even as a primary, the D2 steel holds up so great, so you don't really need the extra edge retention, I believe. So I don't know, I think this D2 steel is just fine and will do anything and more than most of your knives probably in terms of edge retention. So yeah, I think the extra money is probably not worth it, because these can be found for really inexpensive on the secondary market, and they're not that expensive in retail as well. So yeah, that's it, guys, for this video. I hope you liked it, and I will talk to you guys probably in a couple of weeks, as always. Goodbye, see you.